So I know a few of you wanted to see some of our bugs a little bit more close up. So I thought this morning I'll show you a few of our cockroaches. So there's that jelly that some of you have been buying for them. They look like they're not feeding at the moment. But I have got a video which I'll overlay over this one to show them feeding on those. So these are our headlight cockroaches. So all of the cockroaches I'm going to show you at the moment, they are all off display at the moment, ready for new display. So this is a young one. Let me find you an adult one. Okay, so there's quite an interesting one here. So this one is also a youngish one, a little bit older than that one. But this one has just gone through a shed, so shed its skin. That's why it's that colour. It's not an albino, it's just a newly shed one. In fact, I would say this is the skin that it's come out of. So they shed their skin and then they have a new one underneath, and that'll turn black after a day or two. So as you can see, we've got quite a few little babies in here. This one here is an adult. So I'm just going to try and find it with the spots on their head, which is where they get their name from, which I think is what makes them one of the nicest looking cockroach. I'm sure there'll be plenty of you out there who disagree and say there's no such thing as a nice looking cockroach, but there we are. So there you can see those spots on the head. That's why they're called headlight cockroaches. And this is about as big as they get, so it's quite a small cockroach. So they are South American species, so they come from sort of Colombia, Venezuela, that sort of area. Then in this tab here, I've got a broad key cockroach. So it looks like this one is feeding at the moment. Enjoying that jelly. So that one, this jelly here is the black sugar one, and then there's a banana one next to it. So we give them a little bit of variety, and that sort of just tops up their fresh veg that they have. And they only have a tiny bit of that.
Hello, Dom.
So let me see if I can find some more of these. So these are the broad keys cockroaches. So this is a Caribbean species. So they come from sort of St. Thomas, and Puerto Rico, those sorts of areas. So you can see that from above they look like they're a lot wider than they actually are underneath, and that's to give them protection from people like me. We're bugging them. Hey, do you want some jelly, mate? Yeah. So we breed this species as well. So there's some babies. So these are going to be going into a new exhibit at some point. And then next door we've got so these are Madagascan hissing cockroaches. As you can see, they breed really well as well. So these are all young ones. And we keep these on a substrate which is also what they feed on. So you can see they breed really well like that for us. Which is why we haven't got them set up on the dirt like the others. Let me just see if I can find one to show you where the name comes from. So this is why they're called Madagascan hissing cockroaches, and they do that as a defense mechanism. So here's one of these. So they're our largest cockroach, and this is one that you quite often see in sort of pet shops and things, just because they are unusual because of that sound that they make and because of how big they are. They're quite sort of impressive pet one. But as I said, for me personally, these guys here, the headlight cockroaches, they are the most gorgeous one. So we're going to have a look at our stick insect species now. Well, not all of them, just a few of them, because quite a few of them are quite similar. So the first one which we've got is quite familiar to some people perhaps. They're one of the more common species to keep as pets or in schools, and that is the Australian walking stick or thorny stick insect, or sometimes also called Maclay's stick insect. So they got quite an interesting defense mechanism, which is what this one here is doing. So these are both girls. So you can see sometimes that they will, if feeling threatened, so she's calmed down now, that back part of their abdomen, they will pick that up, roll it up in this sort of way, so it look a little bit like a scorpion, just so it look nice and threatening for anyone who might want to come and eat them. So we've just got females here, and they are quite variable in colour, so you can see that one's quite dark. And then we've got another one around here, which is much bigger, which is much lighter in colour. So they can still get a little bit bigger than this as well. Then we'll move across here to some of our sun guy stick insects, also sometimes known as sunny stick insects. So they are, depending on the sex, different sizes. So the larger ones, like this one here, so you can see there, this one would be a female. Then you got the smaller males up on top, so you can see here you got a female at the bottom there, and then a male. This one there. So these are nice. They've got a nice mottled colour, and that adds to their camouflage. So if you can imagine, if they're sat on a tree with lichen growing on it or mosses, they'll blend in really well on the sticks. And they feed on a variety of different leaves. So we mainly give them, what do we mainly give them? Privet and bramble. But we're a little bit low on that at the moment. So we've been trying them with this leaf here, which we have quite a lot of. Seems to be some sort of dandelion type leaf. They seem to be quite fond of that actually. And then finally down here, for me this is quite an interesting species. So this is a Vietnamese stick insect. So I'll grab one here. So we've only got a few of these, and they really do stay true to the word stick insect. They'll spread themselves out sort of long ways. But interestingly, you can see just there, we've got some babies at the moment. So we have bred this species here. We've not had them that long yet. Just see if I can get a baby up close for you. There's a male. Let's have a look, see if we can find you a baby to look at. So I quite like these because they're actually called, so as I said, there's a type of Vietnamese stick insect. But in particular, this is a variant which comes from the Cat Tien National Park, which is somewhere I've been myself in Vietnam. So it's always nice to get sort of animals or insects which are specific to a certain region if you've actually been and seen that region yourself. There we are. So there's that little baby one. So it's quite cool that we breed in those here. And again, so we use the same food for pretty much all of our stick insects. And then we've got some ants here which sometimes have the same as well. So personally, I really like these guys just because their colour. I think they're really nice, varied species. But I do quite like all of them. I think they're really interesting insects to work with. So that's our stick insects. So you might remember this girl from the other day. So she's the tarantula who got her fang stuck. So this is our salmon pink tarantula. So she is our biggest tarantula, and also the species is one of the sort of larger species of tarantula. They can reach a leg span of up to 11 inches, although that's usually the males. So this one's a female, but the females are a lot more stocky, so they can get up to weights of about 100 grams. So they are a big spider, really big spider. They come from Brazil, and I don't think you can really sort of gauge the size of this girl from the video. If I put my hand above, So there you can see just how big she is. I won't get too close because she's not the friendliest spider, but she's also not our most aggressive. So they're not too bad. They don't really like to be touched. So you can see on her back there, she's got a sort of a more bald spot. And that comes from one of their defense mechanisms, which is that they rub their legs against their abdomen and spray hairs. And those hairs will then stick into your skin and irritate you. So they're designed more so to stick in your eyes, irritate your eyes, so that they don't need to waste their venom on biting you. They can just get out of your way while you're rubbing your eyes. But so I don't really want her to brush those hairs off too much. So that was from the other day when she had her fang stuck. But yeah, so on one of my favourite spiders down here. That gives you a little bit of a closer look from the other day. Right, so I know that a few of you wanted to see some amphibians. So here we have, so they are sometimes called chubby frogs for obvious reasons. Chubby painted frogs, Asian painted frogs, sometimes they're called bubble frogs. So that all comes from sort of partly their coloration, because they've got sort of streaks of colour going through them. And of course they are a little bit round. So there's not an awful lot to say about these, to be honest. So they're a Southeast Asian species. They're quite widespread. They're not endangered or anything like that. But I thought I will show them and let you see if they'll feed for you. So these are waxworms that I'm giving them. So that's the larval form of the wax moth. So a lot of reptiles there will eat the moths as well. And that's where you can see where they get the name come from. And this fella ate his as well. I'll give them a few. Oh, there we are. Come on, mate. So as you can see, they are ambush predators. They don't particularly hunt their food or chase it down. They wait for their food to come to them. Oh, there's the other ones coming to get your dinner. Yeah, well done. Right, so that's why I've shown you these little guys. They're quite a nice, interesting one to see feeding. And even though they're not sort of maybe not necessarily the most interesting animal, I think they are absolutely gorgeous and just a really nice example of a terrestrial frog, ambush predator. They camouflage really well, so you can see next to their soil, they do fit in really nicely. So yeah, so there's our chubby painted frogs. So I just wanted to show you these guys here. These are our Cuban crocodiles. I thought this is going to be the best opportunity I'll get to show them to you, because I'm not going to be filming them while feeding. I don't think that would be too safe. But these are a lot of fun to work with. So as I said, these are Cuban crocodiles. In fact, the female, she's actually a hybrid. So she came to us. She's half Cuban crocodile and half American crocodile. So she is on the stud book just to sort of keep an eye on where she is and what she's doing, but she's not actually going to be breeding. So Cuban crocodiles are one of the fastest of the crocodiles. They can jump higher than most crocodiles, and they're also considered to be one of the most aggressive crocodiles. So like I said, they are good fun to work with, so don't worry, I'm not in with them. I'm behind the gate, so I'm nice and safe. So even on land, they can jump quite high. They've got very powerful back legs, so they don't just use their tail for jumping in the water. They'll use the tail a lot to propel them upwards. So they can actually take birds and mammals out of low-lying trees. So the reason why quite a few of these hybrids actually exist, even in the wild, in fact, is that in Cuba there was a big hurricane and a lot of people were breeding the American crocodile for its skin, for making leather. And when that hurricane came, a lot of those escaped. So they have hybridized in the wild as well, which is part of their problem in the wild, part of the reason why they are sort of a little bit more endangered in the wild. They do make a high quality leather that's very sought after because of that gorgeous colour. I mean, you can see they're absolutely beautiful, especially when this one's just come out of the water, so you can really see those colours. But each one of those scales that's raised up at the back there, I've got one in the museum. So we have got a museum here, which you can see there, is actually a bony plate inside the skin. So it gives them really loads of protection. They're basically wearing a massive coat of armour. So yeah, so a few of you wanted to see them. These are our crocodiles. I hope you enjoyed them. So I saw these guys the other day, but the reception wasn't very good in here, so I had to leave. So these are our Aldabra Tortoises. They come from the Seychelles. This handsome fella here is Ted. So he's our male. So he's our friendliest one. All the other ones, the girls, they don't particularly like to be stroked, as you can see. So he is about 80 kilos, and he's still a young one. So he's still got a lot of growing left to do. So they can reach weights of up to quarter of a ton, so 250 kilos. A lot of people say that around sort of 150, 160 kilos is more commonplace. So you can imagine that he's about halfway grown, but potentially he can get sort of significantly bigger, and potentially up to sort of 3 times that size. So they are vulnerable in the wild. So they come from the Seychelles. So they are one of the largest tortoises in the world. So we've got 3 girls in here and 1 boy. They feed mainly on hay and grasses. Let me just come back out. What I'll do, because one of the girls has just come outside. So I'll show you in all their glory in the sunlight. So here we are. So this is one of the girls out here in the sun. There you go. So they're beautiful species, absolutely gorgeous. They're the largest tortoises we've got here at the park. So we've got the sulcata tortoises as well, which are nice and big. So that's the African spur-thigh tortoise. But these ones will get much bigger. Very impressive animals. And obviously because of their weight, we do struggle to move them by hand. Certainly you couldn't have one keeper moving them. But what we do with them is we actually target train them to move around the enclosure after a target, so that at the end of the day we can get her back in there without having to try and wrestle her in there and pick her up. So as we've got a nice warm day today, I've just been informed by their keepers that they call him Manny. If you ask me and Luke, we call him Dave. All our big steaks are called Dave. I'm a bit out of breath. It was a bit of hard work to get out, but I really wanted to show him off in the sun, because if you have a close look at his skin, he's really nice and iridescent, a bit like the old two-tone cars. Really gorgeous colour, which you don't get to see under just sort of indoor lighting. So I'll get him out for you just for a little bit of sunlight. So it's a Southeast Asian snake. It comes from sort of Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, India, Burma, Bangladesh, all those sorts of countries. They're a really widespread snake. They're least concern on the red scale, on the red list. so they're not facing too many problems in the wild, although the same sort of problems that all Southeast Asian rainforest species do face is problems with habitat degradation and people coming in and trying to take their land. Right, so just to finish off for you guys, I thought I'd talk to you about some of the live food that we use. We'll get quite a few questions about those, so I think people are quite fascinated by that side of the reptile house. And we've been getting a lot of the live food getting bought for us on Amazon wishlist at the moment, which is absolutely brilliant. So that's saving us probably a good £100 to £150 per week. Because we're actually at the moment having to order none of our own live food. So you guys are getting all of that for us, which is absolutely amazing of you. So thank you very much. So let's have a quick look. So this is a new one which we've been using recently. And this is the fruit beetle grubs. So these are a really, really big grub. So I'll show you one there. So we use those for our monitor lizards, and that's saving us a lot of the locusts that we usually use, because they're really sort of quite a good value for money live food, just because of how juicy and fatty they are. They do fill them up quite well. You have to be a bit careful of them because they do have those pinchers up there designed for chewing into wood, so they are a little bit bitey when I'm handling them, but there's nothing for the monitors. Now I think the meerkats might enjoy these as well, so I might give them a couple in a minute. And then sticking with the bigger worm stuff, we've got these, which are the Morio worms. So a lot of people often called Mario worms, but that's not the case. They are Morios, and they are basically like a big mealworm. So that's another name for them, is giant mealworms. So those we would give to also monitor lizards, bearded dragons, things that sort of size. The tokay geckos would eat those as well, but they're not huge fans, to be honest. And then the smallest out of that lot are these. So these are the normal mealworms. So you might recognize these from the meerkat food. So these are in the meerkat food, and we use those for lots of our geckos. So things like the African fat-tailed geckos. Who else would eat those? The smaller bearded dragons. The basilisk absolutely loves these. And then sticking with the same sort of group of animals, but also the chameleon quite likes these as well. These are black crickets, so they have quite a hard outer body. So these are quite young ones, so they're fairly soft. But again, so the geckos would eat those. The wonder geckos are really big fans of those. And then we have these guys, which are quite versatile for us. So they're more of a treat. So we don't get through a huge amount of these. So these are wax worms. So we usually only get through a few tubs of these a week. And again, that's the same sort of animals. Again, African fat-tailed geckos, wonder geckos, basilisks, things like that. And the chubby frogs, they really like these. You'll see those. You would have seen those earlier in the video. But as I said, they are quite fatty. But one thing that's quite good about these is that we let a few of these in the pot always pupate. So that's this. And they will then turn into wax moths. And we give those to our praying mantis. So we've got 5 praying mantis here, and they quite enjoy those moths. And then another worm which we've only recently been using, just because they travel fairly well and they keep quite well, are these guys here. So these are the calci worms that you've been getting for us off the Amazon wish list. The basilisk goes absolutely mad for those, as does the Berber skink. So those are 2 fairly lazy animals. They're quite old, so they're quite an easy food for them, so they're really enjoying those. And then finally we get around to the locusts. So I'm going to get these out because otherwise they'll start hopping out all over the place. So these are large locusts, and you do get a size up from that as well, which is the adult locust, which is once they've got their wings. And then we do also have these ones in at the moment. So as you can see, it's a much smaller one. And this again is good for the for geckos and things like that. Whereas these, we mainly use these for bearded dragons. Some of them go to the monitor lizards, and also the tokay geckos absolutely love these. This is the main diet for the tokays, the bearded dragons, and also the Sudan plated lizards. So yeah, so that's all of our live food that we're using at the moment. As I said, most of that's coming in from you, so we really appreciate it. And hopefully that gives you a bit more of an idea of how we use it. Right, so I just wanted to finish off the reptile bit. We're going to go see the meerkats in a minute. But just the reptile bit with raiding through Katie and Leanne's stuff. So that's the education department. So we've got a load of stuff in the education centre which we use for talks. Now it's all replica stuff with the majority of it. So for example, we've got some skulls. These are for the evolution talk. Then we've got a beaver skull here. So these are all replicas taken from museum samples. We've got a little night monkey skull there. There's a hippo tusk, a sperm whale tooth. So these are all fake ones. I really like this one. It's really cool. So this is an elephant tooth, all made of resin. We haven't got any of the real stuff here. The only thing where we've got a couple of real bits is from our reptiles. So I just wanted, that's why I'm in here. So first thing I want to talk to you about was the Cuban crocodiles. A lot of people always ask how many teeth they got, how big are their teeth. So this is a Cuban crocodile tooth. And so this one is slightly broken at the end anyway, so it could have been a little bit bigger than that. Most crocodiles have 64 teeth. These guys have between 66 and 68 teeth, and they are also hollow on the inside. So you can see that that's completely hollow up until down to about here. So the next tooth will be growing inside that. So when they lose a tooth, they got one straight after that which replaces it. And they reckon that the average adult crocodile could go through about 3,000 teeth in its lifetime. And then while we're here, look at a few of the other bits they've got here. So these are the fangs from a salmon pink tarantula, which you saw earlier. So you can see next to me how big those fangs are. What else have we got? Well, here we've got from where we used to serve the venomous snakes. So venomous snakes, just like crocodiles, they do shed their fangs. So these are some fangs from a gaboon viper. So they have some of the biggest fangs. In fact, I think they do have the biggest fangs of any of the venomous snakes. So you can see that they're hollow as well. And you can't see at the bottom, they have like a hypodermic needle tip. What else have we got here that's interesting for you guys? Oh yeah, so we used to have rattlesnakes, and when one of them passed away, we actually kept the rattler. So this is a rattlesnake rattle. It's actually made from sort of modified skin, and so when they shed their skin, they leave behind one of these, as in an extra one on the end. So when they start off, when they hatch out, they have just like a little nubbin at the end here, but you can hear that's where they get the noise from. So that's just those bits of skin rubbing together. Now it's not an accurate way to tell their age, just because they leave one of these behind every time they shed one of these rings. It's not to say that this snake was, say, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever years old, because depending on the snake, depending on how much food they've got access to, how quickly they're growing, what stage of their life they're in, they'll actually shed their skin quicker or slower. So just because one snake sheds its skin once or twice a year doesn't mean that a slightly younger one or slightly fitter one might not shed its skin 3 or 4 times a year, because it's got so much more access to food. So we've got some really cool cheetah dew claw here. Always love coming in and having a look at these. A lion's tooth, harpy eagle talon. So that's the company that makes them. Bone clones. So we bring these in from America. We'd like to get some more bits eventually, but at the moment, obviously, not a great time for us to be able to order them. We haven't got the money for being able to order extra bits for our education department at the moment, sadly. But we've got quite a few nice little bits to keep us going. So these are all used in our school talks, as I said. Yeah, all really cool stuff. And we've got, they've taken them up to the office. So we had some, we've got some casts of chimpanzee and orangutan hands as well. And they're really impressive to see, especially when you have a gorilla or an orangutan hand cast next to yours. It's incredible how absolutely massive those are. Alright, so hopefully that's been an interesting way for us to finish this talk. I'm just looking at a few little bits that you wouldn't usually get to see. Thank you very much, and see you later. Bye. So let's see if these meerkats like these big juicy fruit beetle grubs.
You ready, guys?
So a bit bigger than what they're used to with their mealworms. Oh, thought you missed it.
COVID, look, look, you're standing on it.
Oh, there we are. They're a bit tough and chewy.
COVID, wait, that's my finger.
And that's why we don't hand feed them, kids.
Right.
They're loving them. There's one that's been missed over there, guys. There's a big, fat, juicy one there. So this is not something that we usually give them. They usually have a pellet food and then some mealworms and a little bit of veg. But this is a nice little bit of enrichment for them. It's always nice to give them something a little bit different, because obviously in the wild they'd be getting all sorts of different insects. They're everything from little grubs and worms and spiders, scorpions, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I think that was a hit. See you later.